I realized that the sources that I found online, which was free Black Therapy and the National Association for Black Counselors and Psychology Today with Black and African American therapists in DeSoto County were not very helpful. It was hard to get an interview with any therapist. It was more difficult to actually set up appointments, to even have an intake. And the intake accepted when I did reach someone at DeSoto County, Black and African American DeSoto County therapists. They did not accept Medicaid or Medicare, and they also did not have a sliding scale for paying clients. And there was really not a lot to interview, and I really need to visits on site. So I have a family member that's agreed to be one of my interview subjects. And as I had stated previously, that I'm from this big, amazing, beautiful, intelligent, well-educated family, but we do struggle from some issues of trauma, which will lead to mental health issues that are either we're coping with or not coping with. So I am changing my topic at the present time, my subjects to Tri-Lake Mental Health Facility, Regional 1 Mental Health Facility, and St. Francis, which I will start to interview people again by tomorrow or Monday and see how far I can get. And since I have a client of those facilities, I can go more in detail with my interviewing services on how those facilities worked for my interviewee, and what she has to say in general about her treatment, also her state of mind, mental health, and what led her to seek help, and how that is working for her. So that is my paper will be altered to adjust to these three facilities, and seeing where I get and how far I can get with those in the next week. So now we are going to start our interview. Mrs. Fritzke, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Okay, so I need you to speak very loud and clear.
I'm doing all right.
Okay, so thank you for being my interviewee for my class paper in English 101. And my project, of course, is part of my major, which is I'm a psych major. And I had a series of questions for you, and hopefully you'll be able to answer all these without any issues. So again, what is your age currently?
53.
And what age did you see any possible type of trauma, or did you have any idea that there was something wrong mentally and physically that occurred in your life?
I started getting traumatized at 12. No, realized it at about 14, 15. But I started getting treatment at a later date, and I'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. As I said, this is a family member, so we do know each other, and I know some of the history, but I wanted to, for this class paper, she will remain anonymous, and so will anyone that she mentions, and we will get into detail more about her trauma and her treatment. Do you remember how you felt when this first started?
I had no feelings.
Did you feel empty from the first assault? And mentally, did you have any change in your frame of mind that you could put your finger on?
Not at first.
Not at first. So the first incident of trauma that occurred,
I didn't think it was trauma.
you didn't know it was trauma.
I didn't know that they was it was wrong for them to do the things that they was doing.
Okay, and I think that for a young child of that age, 12 or even 17, sometimes it's confusing. You don't know it's trauma. So, in your head, where did you go? You just went to a place of this is normal, or this is my fault, or where do you think you went? Can you remember back
First,
that
I
far?
thought it was my fault. Then I started saying that it wasn't my fault and this wasn't normal
Okay.
after so long, but we'll get into that.
How how long did this occur, and how frequently do you remember these assaults to both not only your physical being but your mental state of mind? How many years, if you can count back?
At least until, well, it stopped when I was 17.
So from the age of 12 to 17. So that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 years. I wanted to count on my fingers because I want to clarify it for myself. Now, you do have one physical disability. Do you think your disability contributed to the assault,
No.
or it didn't matter?
It probably didn't matter to me, but it probably didn't matter to them, but it mattered to me later on.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't come from my physical disability.
Okay. And can you say overall, other than growing up in a loving household, did you have a normal childhood? If you could say it was normal, you had toys.
I could say my childhood was normal because I played with toys just like any normal child would play with.
And
I went to friends' house and played with them. They came to my house and played with me.
you felt loved. You didn't feel
Yeah.
threatened with your mom. You didn't feel threatened with anyone else around, your siblings.
No.
In the house, you felt loved. You felt needed. You felt safe.
Yeah.
Okay, and you also felt safe with this male person that your mother became involved with. You felt
No.
safe with him from the beginning, or no?
I felt safe from the beginning, but later on I did.
You knew that this would be an issue. Did it start out as feeling creepy, or you felt pretty okay?
When they first moved in with us, I felt no.
Did you feel happy to have somebody else there?
I always wanted my father in my
You
life.
just wanted your father, and you have a good relationship. Unfortunately, he's no longer here, but your relationship with your biological father was wonderful, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you have some other family members from that side of your family that actually was your sounding board, was your everything in a sense, right? Your stability was there.
Yes.
During this time of all of this trauma, how many more people did you think he was traumatizing other than you? Did you feel that you were the only one?
No.
No, you knew for a fact that you weren't the only one, right?
Yes.
And did you discuss this with the other siblings or other family members at that time, even though you knew you had seen or heard things, or you had
I seen things, but I never discussed it with them.
Okay.
Because I never knew how they would feel. So.
Okay, so I haven't brought this up. What is your level of education?
I have 4 degrees.
And what was your first degree?
My first part of education was GED.
Okay.
After going to high school and having to come out of high school visually impaired.
Mm-hmm.
So my first level of degree was vocational training.
Okay, and
then
that gave you training in what field?
Childhood, early childhood.
Okay, and you went from there into
technical. Then I went from technical to early childhood. From early childhood, to elementary.
Elementary teaching.
Yeah.
So you have a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, and that. And you did all of that even though you have a disability. So none of these things, and I'm only asking that because none of these things stop you from completing tasks that most people without any issues in life can complete. You have a higher education, you have a loving family, but again, you were physically assaulted, mentally assaulted. Now, who knew? How many people knew from the age of 12 that these things were happening? Were you silent? You said you thought it was your fault, but once you realize, what year did you realize this is not going to happen? This is not my fault. How old were you at that point?
I want to say 16.
So
I started getting help at 17.
So this had already gone on for about 4 years, and you had talked to family members.
Not in that home.
Not in the home.
But a family member in the home knew about it.
And did nothing.
And they told someone, but nothing ever happened. So.
Okay, so the trauma persisted at home. So during this time, did you feel safe at home, or was your mental health being more strained because you have a predator who basically lives with you, who the family seems to care about, but this person is been someone at the door. This person is now part of the problem. So moving forward, I'm sorry, in my interview we have someone knocking at the door, so we have to attend to that. When did you have your first major, I would say, psychotic break? Because that's what it is called officially. So I'm saying that with kindness.
20. After I started having children.
So at that moment in your life, did the doctors explain to you what a psychotic break was? Did they explain that to you?
Yes.
How did they explain it to you? So you could understand it and explain it to someone else who might be going through what you're going through.
I found out what a psychotic break was on my own.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Because I knew not to discuss everything with everybody that I thought that wasn't for me. And when I found out that they was not for me, I just, went to somebody that was higher up.
So when you were in the biggest, I would say, and they call it psychosis because you're in a place in your mind, I believe, where you can't control what you say and you want to say it to everybody, or you couldn't control your emotions, basically. Your emotions were controlling you. Or you had moments of where you were just couldn't function. Or you could, or you were angry.
I've always been angry.
I
never blamed it. I never took time to say it was a mental status.
You were just angry. But when you were a little kid, you weren't angry. Before 12, were you angry all the time? No, you didn't have this pent up anger. So now you can attach the assault to when the anger started. Okay. When you had your first break, you had then spoken to family members, right?
Yeah.
You had talked to enough of your brothers and your sisters and your siblings. Were you to be believed by your mom or not to be believed?
No.
Did that hurt you even more? Did that make you more intolerant?
Not really, because I was grown then. Not really.
So even though the first time that something occurred, did you say anything between the ages of 12 and?
Yes. Yes, I
And
said
what
it the day that it happened,
and what
and
happened?
I had someone else to verify it.
Your
But
brother verified that, right?
yes, but
So how was
nothing
that
ever
taken?
happened. So I just learned to stay stay away from home and
You
till
were
everybody was asleep, and then when I get home, I go to sleep my own self.
so from our previous conversations, you said on top of that, you were punished for
Yeah,
telling the
I was
truth.
punished.
So that probably set off another level of distrust and anger that
Yeah,
you don't know
yeah,
where as a young child, basically. And some recollection of a conversation that we had about feeling unsafe. You told me about this story about tying your feet together as siblings.
yeah.
And could you walk me through that again? Like,
We would be in the bed. We'd be going to bed. Once I make it home, they made sure I was in the circle too.
okay, so
And until I got like 13 or 14, I started sleeping by myself.
so even at like 14 and 15, you guys were already going out to clubs
Yeah,
because there were local bars and clubs which you could go into
yeah.
in the area here in the South where you live. It wasn't off limits because of age. Could you go in there and drink?
No.
No, but you could go in there and watch the fun and see grown-up people doing grown-up
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Especially they were drinking. Do you think that was age appropriate for you?
No.
No, but it was done anyway.
It was fun because they had game machines in there.
In there, okay. So
they
now,
had like Pac-Man, Atari games that you could put quarters in
yeah,
and play the games.
yeah.
You could sit back there. And
But it was an adult environment
It-
that probably was not appropriate for a
Yeah.
young girl or your age or
Yeah.
any teenager. So that's already setting you up for this adult life that you're not
Yeah.
ready for. So now, going back to this story about your siblings, like you said you would tie each other's feet together,
one of my sisters thought of that idea.
and this was to keep the predator who lived with you
thought
from
keep the
from messing with anyone.
And we thought it would, but it didn't. It didn't do no
So you each tied your feet together with a string,
good. Tied our little toe.
little toe, and if
To
one
the
of you
other
would
toe.
move or
One
someone
of-
would be messed with, you could feel the other one move. But
Yeah.
it really didn't work all the time. That's both a shocking story and just profoundly sad that young children are having to go through this. But I think a lot of people would want to ask, you didn't think about calling the police
No,
or telling your counselor at school?
we didn't have counselors and stuff in school then.
Oh, okay. So we
And
are.
you didn't know what teachers to trust.
Yeah, this
so,
is like 40 some years back, so it was
So you didn't
know who to
know
trust.
who to trust back then.
They could have even been friends with the predator. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who
So-
knows at that point? And as a woman of color back in those days, whatever we got, you just had to kind
Deal
of
with
suck it up, right?
You just had to deal with it until you
what-
get to a better place of
Yeah.
understanding.
So
and-
just fend for yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What would you tell a child of any age right now if you fear that something is happening to them, especially when it comes to molestation or
rape or anything.
anything?
I would tell them to go seek help at the nearest rehabilitation or mental hospital.
That can give them
Because
both.
sometimes you can't trust the police, even nowadays and back then either. Sometimes you couldn't trust anybody
Mm-hmm.
unless it was somebody on the opposite side that knew what you were going to do, and they would try to talk to you or try to keep you in a stable mind. I wouldn't advise nobody to hold nothing in these days.
Don't hold anything in, and make sure you talk to as many people as you can until you find help. And if anything happens, to go to the first mental health hospital to do
Mental health or
a checkup,
regular
a rape
house-
kit, anything that will help
Yeah.
you to secure your position that you have been abused.
yes,
And since a teenager under the age of 17 cannot consent, and even a 17-year-old, it is considered rape no matter what the situation is, especially if it's an adult.
or sexual
A
abuse.
sexual abuse, if it's an adult that's doing this action, not if two teenagers are just fooling around, or even if you're assaulted by another teenage person, that still is rape, and that still needs
Yes,
to
if
be.
you say no.
If you say no, it means no, and if you're not in the position to fight back, you are going to be assaulted, and you need to reach out to the right facility. And you would say a mental health facility is better than going to a police station, especially here in the South. That's what you feel.
Yes.
So that being said, how many facilities did you go to, and what are
mental part?
For the mental part,
I went to 3.
Okay, and what were they?
They was Tri-Lake.
And
When
Tri-Lake.
I went to Tri-Lake, one of my sisters took me
Okay.
and wouldn't let me sign myself and I was grown then.
Okay, so why did she take you there? Why do you feel that she wanted to take you there?
Because I was lashing out on everybody and everyone.
You were starting to rage.
Yeah.
And you were
and I was
acting
grown
out.
And I had children.
But you were having episodes. You would have bouts of episodes, anger that you could not control.
Wanted to just do stuff to any and everybody.
Wanted to hurt people.
That I knew I couldn't come back out of it if I didn't get no help.
After
so
that
my
facility.
My thing was with that was I was in control, but I was out of it in my mind.
And did you try to control it?
Yes.
But you could not in your mind.
I could not physically.
Physically. Did
but
you physically want to strike out?
Yes.
You physically wanted to strike out.
But in my mind was telling me no.
Don't do it. But your body was doing something different.
Showing different things.
Okay, after Tri-Lake, what was the next facility?
I went to St. Francis for something.
Now, this Tri-Lake refer you to St. Francis,
no.
or this is another episode?
This is another episode. I did my own self in.
Okay, and how old were you at that point?
I was still grown.
You were in your 20s.
I was in my 20s.
And you were having moments of a mental fog that you were doing things
I was losing everything.
When you say losing everything, tell me what losing everything means.
I lost my father, grandfather, and sister all in the episode, and my auntie all in the episode of within 7-8 years.
Oh no! So again,
everybody that I was talking to and helping me was going away out of my space. So
they were passing on from.
Yeah.
Was it time for them to go? Do you think they were leaving you too soon? Were they sick? Were they elderly?
They were sick, and it was time for them.
It was just time. They were just older people.
My sister was young.
She was in
her 40s.
And she died from natural causes of an illness.
Died from natural causes.
And your father as well.
Yes, natural.
They were just passing on, and this put another mental strain on you. And at that point, you got a diagnosis, correct?
I had a diagnosis at the age of 20.
At the age of 20, what did the psychiatrist tell you at that point?
First, he said ADHD.
ADHD.
Then he said homicidal, suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said I was bipolar.
Okay.
Then later on, another therapist told me I was psychotic.
And then another therapist says schizophrenic. Then they go back and forth and back and forth. And how long were you in treatment before you got these diagnoses? How long did you see them?
At Tri-Lake, I stayed like 2 weeks. At St. Francis, I stayed like 2 weeks. And now I'm still going to Region 1 Mental Health. So. Region
1 Mental Health has been the most successful for you so far.
Yes.
So do you believe that when you were at St. Francis, after 2 weeks, and you've got all of these family members passing away, you've already haven't been treated from an assault.
I was being treated while I was there. I wasn't treated for the assault. I was being treated for going through the things that I was
the raging.
Through. Yeah.
And the inability to control your emotions.
My physical emotions.
Your physical body wanted to hurt something.
Yes. But my mental mind was still intact.
Okay.
I could still think for myself, and I could still do for myself what I need to do to keep me safe.
Okay. So, do you think the diagnosis that they gave you
Was accurate.
was
Yes.
accurate?
Yes.
You truly believe
Yes.
that
Yes.
whatever they said, that's even
Yes.
after that short
Yes.
stay.
Yes.
So again, they put you on certain types
Certain
of medications,
Yes.
and some of those meds you don't have to name all, just a couple that you think really helped you.
One of them I can't pronounce,
That's okay.
and the other one is citalopram,
I know you say, and that treats what?
antidepressant and anxiety.
And anxiety. So your anxiety was pretty high because you have been assaulted repeatedly over and over again, and your emotional body is just strained to its limit, and then you lose all of your support system. So in doing that, don't you feel that a human body would naturally rebel and make you feel this way?
I rebelled it, but I also was intact with my own interactions.
Do you feel that if
Even though they wanted me to doubt myself, but by my grandparents always telling me you got to pray and give it to God, this, that, and other. And my dad always told me don't let nothing hold you back or hold you down physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, and none of the above. I always kept control of my mind.
So mentally,
you I always
knew that you were okay.
I always said I was gonna be all right.
But at those moments, you were not able to control, and you were not okay.
I was not all right, but I was always telling myself I was all right.
But you were not okay.
Yes.
But you had convinced yourself that you were.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look back on that person that was created from that trauma, that was not inflicted by you, but by grown people who were supposed to care for you, if that hadn't happened, do you think you would have gone through as much trauma as you've gone through? If those younger years of that sexual assault and that assault to your physical body and your mental body, do you think that you would have been stronger to handle the passing on of your father and other family members?
No.
You still would have had this break.
I would have still had a break because my father's side of the family shows more loving and caring reactions than my other side of the family.
Okay.
Even though me and my siblings get along when we want to get along with each other,
mm-hmm.
but I've always had things to think in my mind, put in my mind, well, they gonna feel this way regardless to what you do or what you say, but you got to have this strong constitution for yourself to get over some certain things. So I've never let my physical ability nor my mental ability interact with my social ability.
Okay, I understand
my
that
social
completely.
and sexual ability goes together.
Okay, I understand that completely. So we're about to end up the interview, and I appreciate it so much. And again, the 3 facilities that you would recommend to people would be Tri-Lake.
Yeah.
They were kind and considerate.
Yeah.
St. Francis.
Yeah.
It's also a great facility.
They also have a mental ward.
At St. Francis, but one of the best places
would be a mental facility.
A mental facility, such as Regional 1 Mental Health. Mental hospital, and especially especially when you feel like you are okay, but you know that you're not okay,
mm-hmm.
and you cannot fix it.
I couldn't fix it without the help of God and medication.
Okay, so if you have other family members and friends asking you questions about, do you believe that therapy works? What would you say?
Yes, therapy works.
Do you believe when you have a hormonal imbalance or a chemical imbalance in the body and the brain, do you believe that medication that's on the market actually will help?
It will help some people if they let it.
Okay.
Help them. or they wanted to help them, but they got to have the frame of mind that God is going to get them through it along with the medication.
They have to be able to help themselves.
Yes.
Well, Mrs. Fritzke, I appreciate this so much. And the three mental health institutions that here in Tunica County and some in other parts of the South of Mississippi would be Tri-Lake, St. Francis, and Regional 1 Mental Health. And I appreciate your interview so much. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so thankful that you were able to get help and that this worked out in your favor somewhat. And you're able to function within all of these things that occurred to your life. And thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate it so much. And nothing but energy, love, and light, and joy, and good times ahead of you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.